ReelAbilities Los Angeles welcomes you to our panel of filmmakers and actors from Best Summer Ever. Michael Randa, Rickey Wilson Jr., AJ Murray, and Andrew Pilkington. Sorry, I said your name wrong. Pilkington. Now you'll get to learn more about them and the making of this film and get to ask your own questions. So please welcome our moderator, a powerful advocate for sexuality and disability education, a member of the Women of Color Sexual Health Network, and a self-proclaimed deep-fried Southern woman, Robin Wilson Beattie.
Right. Well,
and are you gonna, okay. Well, hi, first off, I just want to say, absolutely amazing film. And I feel really fortunate that I finally get to see, disability represented in this uplifting and creative way, but mainstream, big budget film, on my screen. I watched it on Hulu, and that was just awesome. And, as somebody who's a little older, and I was just like, wow, I'm finally getting to see something like this. And kids will have something like this. They'll always have like, oh yeah, well, there's a musical, yeah. But I would like to hear from each of you. First up, I would like to you guys to each introduce yourselves. And I'm going to start with Andrew, because I want to know what your role was. Because actually, I noticed that when I was looking all of you up, like Andrew wears lots of hats. He's a producer and an actor. And I was like, okay. And AJ, of course, I know all stuff too. And then I was looking at Michael. So, Andrew, can you start us off and tell us about what you did in this film? What your contributions?
Yeah. Well, I was one of the 5 writers for Mike, Amon, Ella, and Will, and I was a producer. All of the producers. So I did like everything except directing. Anyway, actor, I'm so free lines, and yeah. I did a little bit of everything.
That's incredible. That sounds like a lot of work. But that's amazing. I'm glad that you can do all of that, because
the indie world.
Yeah, exactly. And which brings me then to the next person. AJ, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is AJ Murray. I'm an actor, and I played Kevin in the film, the older brother to the star kicker, Tony, which was played by Rickey.
Okay, and this is awesome. And believe me, I've got more questions, but I just want y'all to introduce yourself real quick. So, Michael.
My name is Michael Parks.
Pull my close up.
I'm one of the co-directors, editors, writers, and executive producers on the film. I feel like Andrew needs even more credit, even though he's just rolling in to still watch the Red Sox game, of which we're both really into right now. Andrew was really the glue of this film in every possible way. He'll say no and he'll shake his head. He really was the spiritual whole of this movie. So, stop being so goddamn modest.
Okay, well, see, this brings me to that this film, especially. Okay, so I'm going to ask Andrew, since you were a writer on this, how long has this been in production? How long did it take from like writing to filming it?
Oh God. Well, we started in 2017 spring, and then we filmed it that fall, and then we filmed more a year later, then we filmed even more, and then we edited for like 2 years, and we felt that the movie was stop by and look over the house. So we couldn't get a deal until this year. And yeah, so really like 2017, 2020. But 4 years to release.
Oh wow! So 4 years, basically, from like gestating and then finally birthed a beautiful, wonderful production. But that
Ooh, long birth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a we call it like the 5-year pregnancy. That's
yeah. But but it's like, but I'm really glad. I mean, I know that it seemed like a really long time, and for the audience, we're looking at this, but I'm like, that shows us an incredible amount of dedication and hard work to making something that is great. But I also, so that kind of leads me to, because I want to know a little bit more about this process. Like, who did you visualize as the audience when you were writing and producing? And this question actually is for each of you, because as an actor, you're thinking about, the audience that you're, wanting to communicate with, basically, with your performance. And, a writer has, whether it be in the producer, the director, they all have how they think about how they want the audience to see things. So I want to hear your visions of, what was it that what did you visualize? Who did you imagine was going to be watching this? So we'll start with Andrew.
Oh yeah, you go.
God. If we knew what I am probably admit to fight changes for. Really no I so that's why like high school I am play but I am like children's movie but also like we and gloves and swearing. So it's like all genres. But we call it a musical for adults. All kids, they say sad songs for the real part. Yeah.
A musical for adults, but it actually though was kind of family friendly though, because the fact that I guess maybe because what I do, as a sex educator, I'm like going, but it was except for Beth, she drew the penis on the mirror. That actually was one of my favorite parts, but
yeah.
But so AJ, that's the same question for you. Who was it? Who were you? Who did you picture?
Wow. So I just pictured, well, at first there's different levels for me. So first, when I would imagine it, I'll be honest with you, I want everybody on the four corners of the earth to see it. But then as I really think about it, especially as it has come out, especially as I think about myself growing up and wanting to be in this business and just being a disabled person, I really want I really want a lot of young people to see this and older people too. But I just want our community to see this specifically, because it's very important to see yourself. And I promise I won't credit that, but it's very important to see yourself reflected on screen, because I always wanted to be an actor from I was very little, but to be honest, I didn't really have anybody that was like me outside of I didn't really have anybody really basically like me until I didn't see things until I was an adult. So the thing that I think about is how awesome it's gonna be for little kids potentially picture of his dick notwithstanding, but little kids potentially to be like, wow, I can see myself and I can see my wheelchair on a screen. And so I know I just gave a long ass answer, but that's really important to me. So,
what about you, Michael? What were you thinking about?
I think,
Who do you think was going to watch this?
in an idyllic sort of mindset, as a bunch of friends who came together, who are part of the Xena Mountain Farm, this community, people with disabilities, which is really, at its core, a camp where, people don't pay to go or pay to be part of it. We were all just sort of like, we've always made movies with the mindset of like, we're kind of doing it for ourselves. Like at the forefront of it in the past has been like, well, this is what we do. We have a sports camp where we all get together and play sports. We all have a music camp where we write songs together. And the movie aspect has always been sort of just like, this is just kind of what we do, And I think over time we sort of found ourselves being somewhat inadvertently like thought leaders in space, because there was no like agenda to it necessarily. And I think with Best Summer Ever, we found ourselves kind of having an opportunity to spread to a wider audience and have a bit more of a foothold in the inclusive space. And so I think when we started to kind of conceptualize Best Summer Ever, it was more about like, we're going to make the movie that we want to make by like kind of our friendship standards. And, what we learned through the process is like, if you make a High School Musical that is darted towards children, then you have dick jokes and you have swearing, like all the things that like studios would say, like, nope, nope, nope. Consider your genre, like, nope, nope, nope. We just didn't adhere, for better or worse, to any of that, and just made a film on like kind of by our standards and what we've always done. And I think that while, I think the reception that the film has gotten has reflected that, which is like, this isn't just an agenda-based film where people are trying to, shove this idea down the throats that inclusivity matters. It's just like, this is a group of friends organically making the film who care deeply about one another, and the message is rooted in that. But at the end of the day, like we're just trying to have a good time making a movie together, and hopefully that reflects in our effort, and it seems to have.
Well, see, that kind of leads me to because I know that a lot of the actors featured in the film are part of Xeno, and so all three of you were y'all have all made films together at Xeno over the years. I saw that there's a documentary actually about Xeno.
Yeah, and that honestly, there was a documentary called Becoming Bulletproof, which was about us making a Western. And
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
and that was honestly, in a lot of ways, kind of what propelled us. That film itself was just a short film that, the movie itself was like 20 minutes long, wasn't necessarily going to move the needle, but this documentary that showed the process of us making a film in ways that, in hindsight, we realized that, inclusive films weren't even being attempted in that way. The success of that documentary and getting on Showtime really leveraged us to make something at this scale. People started paying attention to, what we were doing. And I think in the back of our minds, we'd always hoped to make like a feature of some sort. And after that, we were like, well, this is the right time to bite off more than we can chew and try to make something at this scale, which we did.
Yeah, it really taught me a lesson on, if I can interject if it's okay, it really taught me a lot the long game, because like Mike was saying, I think if I can speak, not that I'm going to speak for him, but if Will were here tonight, I don't know if he would say it, but this is something that Xeno was kind of always bubbling under the surface. This is something eventually we're going to do. And becoming bulletproof was a blessing because it sort of gave us the opportunity to catapult this dream. But it was something that I think was always going to be ruminating. I remember one of our friends, Robert Escalera, was talking to Will one day, and we were in California, and he was like, I remember you were talking about a feature film our first summer in LA. So it also teaches me personally about just, just being prepared and waiting for the long game, but never giving up and overcoming the challenges, And just
for those who haven't seen Becoming Bulletproof, like AJ is like the epicenter of that film. And as an actor, what's always inspired me about that movie, and you to this day, AJ, is like watching that, which was 7 years ago, and seeing like your determination persist and your drive as an actor with a disability. Like you've made such massive strides, both individually but more so professionally in that time. And like that documentary is so pertinent to the times we're in right now, where it's like, actors with disabilities, like truly with, that are as talented as AJ are, deserve to have this seat at the table that like has been so incredibly, sheltered and shielded from the, community of people with actors with disabilities. And AJ really has been like an activist at the forefront of that for a long time. So,
but then it also shows that we can make our own damn table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we are talking about representation, and so I'm gonna have to mention this because of course, I am disabled. I'm a Black woman, disabled, and and the thing I loved about this film was seeing so many people with disabilities just living life, like being people with disabilities, being a police officer, or people, cheerleaders, whatever. But and so getting to see a truly inclusive community, of dreams or whatever, that was awesome. But however, as a Black woman, I did notice a lack of disabled Black women, and pretty much Black women, period. I counted like maybe 2, except for maybe 3 with the mom in the video. But I just thought, because African Americans have one of the highest rates of disability, like 29%, versus like 20% of white Americans. And also, like, the film only had one disabled Black main character, who was male. And so I know that, this is promoting, of course, inclusion and inclusivity, and it is. But I do want to know, I am curious about the absence of Black women in this, especially since we are such a large part of the disabled population. And I was like, okay, where did these Black men come from? I know the mom is dead, but there gotta be some other Black ladies there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is just my thought.
No, I think
did anybody else notice this?
It's such a good question, and I think that this is really something that is reflective of like, us, having this community in Massachusetts and Vermont, and kind of like very, a very, insular sort of group that really needs to be more inclusive in that way. And I think that's something that the organization has been working on a lot. I think that there is a lot of growth that's needed to be done, both within Xeno, but in the industry, of course, at large. And I think that the truth is that for so long, Xeno has casted internally. And when making a film in Vermont, in which, there unfortunately just like aren't a lot of people of color in that, like, which is just totally ridiculous, but it's really true. And I think that it's like, that I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's something that feels very apparent while watching the film in 2021, where it's like, yeah, you've got a couple of leads of color, and
they're men.
yeah,
They're all
and you can see it like in the high school scenes as well, where it's like, okay, you have your main character, you know, the like token black, you know, main character, and that's so something that I think when we started making the film, we're like, okay, well, we need to make sure there's representation both, you know, in as many facets that we can cover. And when you look back at it now, it's like, you know, we basically worked with who we had, low budget, you know, type of film. And there's so much for us to learn and strive for from what we were able to accomplish. But yeah, that's so right. It rings so true every time I see the film. That's like, this does not have, yes, it has the disability representation, but it does not have enough of, you know, of so many different characters that deserve to be included. So that very much, you know, we hope to, you know, include further down the line. Next thing.
But to your point, Robin, if I may, I think that it's definitely an issue in this film, but it's an issue in the industry disability wide, because I do remember being on a panel or receiving some information. I forgot where I got it, and I apologize because I want to give people, you know, their props. But I believe for Black women specifically in disability and on screen, for Black women with disability on screen, the numbers are 0.0%. So it's a wide industry problem, especially when it comes to disability. Black women are not represented, and thank you. I'm not trying to mansplain, but thank you for bringing it up. You know, because the industry as a whole, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and because I know that what I did notice that I liked, because you guys had some really big names. Y'all had Benjamin Bratt and Maggie Gyllenhaal, and I mean they're two of my favorite actors. And so when I saw them in there, I was like, what? This is awesome.
Yeah.
And okay, so y'all are not so low budget and it's small on this, because y'all had some big names in there. And then I was also looking, I think I saw like Jamie Lee Curtis was one of the producers.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is, like, and I think that this is important to note, is that, you know, those are individuals who had really seen Becoming Bulletproof and been like, you know, really inspired by that. But if we were, you know, with transparency, like that, their involvement doesn't affect like a budget point. They just were like, you know, we want to support this film and put our names on it. But I you know, regardless, like they really were like a huge, you know, having people at that like A-list scale be able to like put, you know, their names on it meant a lot to the film and helped to like really, you know, like, you know, for instance, when we end up getting like the Today Show and Ted Danson and Mary Steenburgen, who were really just like proponents of the film, like when we wanted to have AJ and Shannon on the Today Show, who are like leads of the film, the Today Show says, no, thank you. We just want your A-list stars, you know? And so it's like, in order to even have that level of press, you have to, with like, you know, the little engine that could of a film like ours, like having that high level sort of like, you know, support is the only way to even have that level of acknowledgement. And man, it was like, we're so thankful for those people for repping this. Really.
And so I had that brings it into another question. I'm like, so y'all think there might be a sequel?
Is he single?
No.
You don't got another 4 years to write it out.
I'm really yeah.
I have an idea though, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But my brain is always thinking, so I do have an idea. I think I can share it because I don't think it's gonna really go. But would you guys like to hear it?
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
So my idea is a sequel that will be called Last Summer Senior Year, a Best Summer Ever Story. And it would basically be the story of Sage's and Rick and Tony's last year, and they're sort of going through the angst of splitting up, and then we meet some new characters as they're touring around in college and stuff, and maybe this time is Big Bro, I don't know, has a job, maybe like a sports coordinator or something, but you know, that's a sequel we can do. Best Summer Ever, Senior Year, a Best Summer Ever story.
You write it and you
AJ,
So that-
pen on paper.
That's why I think I could say it, because something tells me it's not gonna happen. You know, but miracles happen though.
It's a big Kevin Michael.
Enough demand from a major studio. You know?
Hey, Kevin
If we could just get that hashtag going, I want the Randa cut. I want the Randa cut. So
You don't want that. You want the Pilkington.
Yeah, you got Pilkington cut. He's got one.
Pilkington cut and the Randa cut.
2 hours of that summer.
Robin, I think you have a couple questions that might be coming up.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little punchy. I'm sorry.
Oh no, let's look at the.
So
Let's look
Lourdes
at the
can,
question.
I think Lourdes
Sure.
had.
So I have those questions. I'll read the first one. Their first question is, one of employers' concerns is always, how are we going to accommodate? How to accomplish accommodating the cast's various needs, and how can others learn that as a model?
That's a great question. Whoever asked that question so smart. When we have a number of disabilities like mine, every and Karen and our cook supervisor Elizabeth and many more. And you know, we all do our job differently. Like I type with my nose, so I need to have a higher platform. So I got space to do that. And when we did wardrobe, we put adaptive clothing on that way. And the cat get out of the outfits quicker. And then, you know, we have ramps and stuff around, but, you know, everyone has their own needs. And we, you know, we are in Vermont, so
Yeah.
that is the hoop to begin with. So you and the movie set on top of that. So yeah, it was challenging. Yeah, it can't be fun.
I think that like our experience was like it was crucial to recognize that like you're not just being inclusive just to check the box, right? And so if you're actually going to be committed to the movement, then it's actually taking like a specific look at every individual need, able-bodied or disabled, and really making changes or adapting to those specific needs, not just saying like across the board, oh, we're going to have wheelchair ramps, or we're going to have these specific, you know, bathroom breaks, whatever it is that's more like in production can be sort of just like, you know, across the board. It's saying like, you know, you bring value and it's so important. Your value may, like, in order to accommodate your value, we need to make specific changes or, you know, think in a different way than we, you know, would normally have to. And so it's not just like saying, okay, yes, we're bringing on a crew or a cast of people, of talented actors with disabilities, is saying within that segment individually, like, what are your needs? And if we're failing, how can we adapt? Because that was certainly part of the process, was us going into it saying, you know, no one does it like we do, and then realizing like we are failing anyway, you know? So having those conversations and not making it a point of uncomfort or contention, and saying, how can we learn from our own failures or our own, you know, preconceived notions, and making sure that we are treating everyone with the integrity and dignity that they deserve while busting their fucking ass on a movie set.
Yeah, 12 hours.
Yeah, like this is not
Feeling.
showing up for an hour to volunteer. Like this is 44 days, whatever it was. Like this is real hard work. Yeah, you know, like it's no joke. And so if inclusivity is at the, you know, is important to your production, like make sure it's not just a box to check, because you will fail, you know, and you will do wrong by the individuals who deserve to have, you know, every need of theirs met, just like, you know, as any person deserves. And that was something that we really, you know, learned throughout the process. We did not get it all right, you know, and I think the most important thing is having the open conversations and having the openness to say, like, we thought we knew how to make this inclusive. We are learning every day.
We're all learning every day. I just wanted to say that, because I am too. Today, I mean, this week, you know, I was learning something else about like language, and
Sure, yeah.
like language that people want, and like and so, and how important it was to say it the way that that person how they identified.
Right.
And so I'm, you know, we're all learning that, you know, because it's all a process, you know, culture is not stagnant, it's ever changing.
Right.
And so, but what I'm liking is seeing this change, seeing this film.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I never thought I'd get to see a musical with so many different people with so many different kinds of disabilities. And so that was really cool.
Robin, can we squeeze in
Awesome.
one more maybe one more outside question, one or two? I'm going to jump in myself, take privilege here. With people with disabilities so broadly represented across the film, talk about what you'd recommend to filmmakers with disabilities about getting into the business. Has the world changed in the 4 years since you've been working on this? Is it more open for writers and producers and directors and cinematographers? Where's that going, and how can you all be part of that?
We could speak for an hour on that. Who wants to go first though? Because I could say a lot on this, but it's not the AJ show.
Yeah.
Very much the two of you should speak to this.
Yeah. No, like, well, you know, I'm a producer, but I do a lot of things. You gotta be very flexible, and you gotta know your skill set. And, you know, there's a lot of jobs that you do, and, you know, navigating and networking, you know, goals, you know, knowing your own, knowing your own capabilities, because I'm not gonna be a camera guy. Look at my hair. Yeah. I don't want me holding my camera, but I can do a budget. I can do a schedule. I handle millions of dollars over my film career. So now, can you believe it? That this guy from me?
You've got the best money mindset of any of us, let's be honest.
So, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. But as you know how, you know, you're an actor.
Yeah, I just want to say that it is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's still very, very difficult and hard to bust those doors down and roll over them or have no doors at all so you can make your way in. But I just want to say, on the other hand, like we couldn't be more fortunate to be born in such a time as this because we have never been in a time where basically, so back in the day and even before we were born, it was all about the studio. And basically, there were all these gatekeepers, right? And they were looking for certain kinds of people. Well, we were lucky enough to be born in a time where there's the internet, right? So we have YouTube, and we actually have cameras in our phones, and people can make their own content, and so it's just amazing. I think, although not to get political, but right now there's lots of fighting with streaming, deservedly so. But on the other hand, particularly Netflix and Hulu too, thanks for purchasing the film. But as far as disability, to my mind, and I'm not 100% an expert, but streaming, Netflix and Hulu and some others, streaming is kicking ass right now. I just wish that they would pay their crew members a whole lot more. I just want to take this opportunity to say I stand in full support with my sister union, IATSE. They deserve everything that they're fighting for and more, to be honest. But I just want to say we couldn't be born in such a time as this. But then also, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention, unfortunately, in a very tragic way, because a lot has happened in our nation with a lot of Black lives being lost. Like, in a way, and I wish it didn't happen this way, but in a way, as a result, people are saying, wait a minute, we have to be more open. And I pray to God that I wish it didn't have to happen that way, but at least I can look at people, at least I can look at so many people that have died and be like, well, in a way, at least in a small way, their deaths won't be in vain, because at least right now, everybody is talking about authentic casting. Now, what we have to do is just make sure that it's not a moment, but a movement, because things like this have the tendency to be very sexy. I don't want it just to be sexy. I want it to last. So that's what I hope that we could do. So thank you, because I wrote a book. So
to the whole team, we are getting about to the end. We actually all of a sudden the questions are lining up. We have two more questions we'd love to squeeze in, one from Maggie and one from Lynette, and then we are going to ask you, Robin, to take us home. Staff, are you reading those, or who's reading it?
I'm ready. So the question from Lynette is, when you were casting, was there anyone in the cast in particular that you went after to be in the film, or was it just a general casting call? And then the second question from Maggie is, do you have any advice or words of encouragement for disabled filmmakers who may be feeling totally thwarted by the disregard in society and general towards disabled stories?
Well, I think for the at least for the casting, I think that we'd mentioned a bit about how in past films that we'd made, they've been very sort of like insular. We sort of just cast, internally, hadn't taken the film seriously enough, in the sense that, like, I was an actor in some of the past films. I'm a horrible actor. I have no business being an actor in any of these types of any film, to be honest. But we just were kind of making them for ourselves, and that there was something pure in that. I think we realized with the film that has the potential like this at making a feature, and also like recognizing the impact we could make, that like we're doing a disservice by just casting. Like Andrew and I both had like small, tiny parts in this film. None of us are actors, but we just had, you had to kind of put yourself in to be a background actor, have one line.
Andy World.
A legitimate actor. And I think for this, there was, it's always easier to just cast with who there's a comfort in that. And I think with this, we felt like we needed like a really dynamic female lead. And we found that in Chin DeVito, who, we always refer to as like the Swiss Army knife. Like she's got comedy, she's got drama, she's got like, she really got it. And it's no wonder that she's sought after at this point. Like we were lucky to get her when we got her. And I think that for us was a really important part of this process was not simply just, I keep saying like checking the box, but like we easily could check the box with our friends. But if we're going to make a legitimate film that needs to sway this preconceived notion that actors with disabilities like are lesser than, and I think that perhaps that idea is second nature in the strangest sense, because I don't think that it's something that people necessarily are like thinking about. But I think that we felt like if we're going to make a film like this, we want to make sure that that this so overwhelmingly deserving community is represented with the best of the best, right? The way that any film would cast, they want the best actors. They want to, be swayed by the emotional pull or the comedic pull. And when you come with, when you're awarded an actor like Shannon, like that's just, she's perfect. She's got such a massive.
Leave behind, man.
I think for us, it was just like, make sure that we're showing actors with disabilities with the best possible talent we could find. That would, that we'd be so privileged to have part of our project.
Yeah.
The second part of the question, but you for I forget what it was.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess be versatile and know what you want to do, and like that's not how adapt. The world won't adapt to you. You gotta adapt to the world. So, Hollywood is so weird. It changes every minute. One thing, one line, and then oh shit, now it's like all the movies are on demand now, and it's so you gotta be like adaptable. Yeah.
And so what I would say to the last question about what advice we give to disabled filmmakers, and that is like just whatever you want to do, whether you want to be an actor or a filmmaker, just learn as much as you can about your industry, whatever resources you have. There are plenty of resources on YouTube, and I know like if we were in a pre-COVID world, I would say, but things are opening up. But just volunteer wherever you can, get in wherever you can, take classes, join Facebook groups, build a community. It's very important to build a community, because once you build a community, you can get work. I mean, just being very transparent about getting work from fellow artists. A couple months ago, Mikey Randa hooked me up with a gig, and it was a paying gig, but it was because, we know each other as artists, and we know we're out here hustling. But it's very important. If I wasn't out there trying to connect and get in these communities, I wouldn't know Mikey Randa. So community is very important, and doing whatever you can to learn whatever you can about your industry. I'm living proof, not that I'm trying to promote, but I'm living proof if you can't get into college, that doesn't matter, especially these days. Volunteer, sign up for programs, just do whatever you can, and you can learn and build your community, and that's very important that I could give you within the time that we have, because I gotta shut up. So
I'm about to say, speaking of time, I know they're probably about to sound the siren, but I just wanted to thank all of you for everything that y'all did in this film and for bringing this to light. I mean, bringing this to life and bringing this vision, and and giving also hope, future, more inclusive future. And I hope that this is just the start, and I can't wait to see what else, what y'all do. And
that does take us to time. A big thank you to everyone at the ReelAbilities Los Angeles team, to the wonderful folks from Best Summer Ever, Andrew Pilkington, AJ Murray, Michael Parks Randa. Thank you so much, Robin Wilson Beattie, for moderating this conversation for us. I remind everyone that the ReelAbilities Film Festival continues throughout the weekend. Tomorrow we'll start with 9 short films. That's our short program on Saturday. It's extraordinary. Please go to ReelAbilitiesLA.org. You can still get tickets throughout the weekend. We have more feature films till the afternoon, a panel on sports, mental health, and disability, a schmoo Zoom with Danny Woodburn and Crip Cramps, Jim Lebrecht. This is going to be really an extraordinary day. So we'd love to see you all again. Thank you so much again, and a big ReelAbilities thank you again to folks from Have a beautiful night. Good luck to the rest.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
How you